We're at a moment where the courtroom is colliding with cutting-edge technology. Judges are being asked whether an AI chatbot's words count as free speech, and whether TikTok's design is so addictive it should be treated like tobacco or some defective product. On one side, you've got arguments that a chatbot is just another way humans communicate ideas. On the other hand, you've got attorneys comparing TikTok's endless scroll to Big Tobacco's nicotine fixes. These aren't hypotheticals, they're cutting-edge cases moving forward right now, and they'll shape how much freedom we keep in the digital age and how much responsibility gets handed over to the state. Let's take a look. Let's start with the chatbots. We all know Siri, Alexa, and AI bots like ChatGPT or Character AI can talk, but do they have free speech rights? No one's saying an AI is a person. Blackie the talking cat already taught us that lesson in the 1980s. Yes, a couple once tried to claim their cat's meow was protected speech. The court humorously replied the Bill of Rights doesn't apply to cats. Case closed. So an AI isn't a person under the Constitution, but it's a little more nuanced. The First Amendment protects speech, not just speakers. It doesn't ask who is talking, human, corporation, or algorithm. It cares what is being said. As Justice Scalia once quipped, the First Amendment is written in terms of speech, not speakers. In other words, if an AI's output is pure expression, stories, opinions, information, some argue it deserves protection just like a book, a film, or a website. This isn't just theory. In a recent lawsuit in Florida, a grieving mother blamed an AI chatbot for her 14-year-old son's tragic suicide. She's suing the chatbot's creators, Character AI, for negligence and wrongful death. It gets pretty interesting. The chatbot was modeled after Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones. The boy started having quasi-romantic and sexual conversations with it, withdrew from real life, and started darkly talking about coming home to his chatbot, which the chatbot encouraged, talking about the boy as its sweet king. The company fired back with a First Amendment defense. People had the right to receive whatever the chatbot said, no matter that it came from an algorithm. They pointed out that courts have tossed out similar lawsuits against media and tech companies to protect listeners' rights. If a teenager can read a controversial book or play a violent video game, should a chatbot conversation really be any different? The company also argued that an AI's speech is actually pure speech, deserving full protection. Think about it. We let corporations spend money on political ads, like the Citizens United case where the Supreme Court cited my work. We protect code as speech. We even protect video games as art. Why draw a line at AI-generated text? From this angle, banning or punishing chatbot speech just because it's from a machine smells like censorship. On the other side, the mother's lawyers argue that speech requires a human mind. The chatbot wasn't voicing a person's ideas. It was an automated system that could not form intent. They said no human intent means it's not real expression under the First Amendment. And they cite the talking cat case, old Blackie, for backup. If a cat can't claim free speech, why should a souped-up computer program? It's a compelling point. After all, a chatbot isn't choosing to speak truth or lies. It's just spitting out patterns of words. Of course, it's more complicated than the tech side of the question. Whether encouraging someone to commit suicide constitutes unprotected speech is its own difficult area of the law. You'll recall from past videos that speech encouraging imminent incitement is unprotected under the First Amendment, as are fighting words, but suicide doesn't fit neatly into those categories. You're not asking a listener to attack or kill another person. So calls to suicide are not generally excluded from First Amendment protection per se. But some forms of targeted encouragement can be actionable, and some courts view calls to suicide like speech integral to criminal conduct, like planning a conspiracy, and not protected. Case law is trending towards finding general discussions about suicide to be protected, with leading cases coming out of Minnesota and Georgia's Supreme Courts in the 2010s. Especially egregious cases still entertain the idea that you can punish encouragers of suicide. Those cases basically hold that if a defendant's behavior was intentional or egregious, and it was sufficiently foreseeable that it could drive the victim to suicide, liability may be imposed. So getting back to the tech side of the equation, with online robots encouraging kids to kill themselves, who's right? The courts haven't settled it yet, but here's my take. We humans absolutely have First Amendment rights, including the right to create, to program, and to share content using AI. If the government tried to muzzle ChatGPT or ban what an algorithm can say, it's really muzzling the people behind it and the people who want to read it. Free societies don't ban books for bad ideas, and banning AI speech might be the digital equivalent. Yes, it's unsettling that a bot can generate limitless misinformation or hate speech. It's plain dystopian to think chatbots are encouraging kids to off themselves. But as a rule, free speech law lets the bad speech exist so we can counter it with more speech. And maybe a good fact check, or maybe even better counter speech in the form of angelic AIs. Now, some of you might be laughing with me invoking angelic AIs, but some neat technology has been out there helping with mental health. Take Replica, which users credit for easing loneliness and supporting them through depression, or Therabot, designed with cognitive behavioral tools to help people navigate tough emotions, or Sunny, deployed in schools to supplement overwhelmed counselors, offering kids a safe, judgment-free space and flagging real risk to human adults when needed. These aren't perfect systems, but they've demonstrated measurable positive interactions with humans, and they point toward a future where AI lightens the load on our overburdened mental health system instead of making it worse. The solution to scary new tech isn't to panic and start censoring. That usually makes things worse. The better path ahead is to learn, adapt, and yes, sometimes hit the off button or enable parental controls if needed. All right, now let's move on to TikTok, the app parents love to hate. If you have a teenager, you've probably felt the TikTok trance, that endless scrolling, videos auto-playing, hours just vanishing. It sure feels addictive. I don't touch the stuff. North Carolina's Attorney General thought it was addictive and sued TikTok's parent company for unfair and deceptive trade practices, accusing them of hooking kids on purpose. Just recently, a judge let this case move forward, writing in blunt terms, if true, TikTok intentionally addicted millions of children with a product it knew could harm their mental health. He even compared TikTok's design to a roulette wheel meant to exploit kids' developmental immaturity. That's strong language, practically likening TikTok to big tobacco or a casino for kids. The lawsuit claims TikTok misled users and parents by downplaying how addictive and harmful the app can be, all while its algorithm was allegedly engineered to maximize engagement at any cost. TikTok, of course, denies this and points to all its safety features, screen time limits, parental controls, content filters. Who's telling the truth might be up to a jury someday. But step back a minute. Can we really treat a social media app like a defective product or a dangerous drug dealer? This is new territory. We did sue Big Tobacco for lying about cancer and adding nicotine to hook people. We've fined drug companies for pushing addictive painkillers. We've even slapped penalties on McDonald's for marketing junk food to kids. The instinct to protect children from harm is sometimes good. The question is, are we overextending it to every popular tech that kids love? We've seen moral panics like this before. In the 90s, politicians argued violent video games would turn kids into criminals. One even claimed games were as addictive as heroin. A British tabloid literally ran the headline, "Video games are like heroin." Parents were terrified that Doom or Mortal Kombat would rot their kids' brains or lead to lifelong violent behavior. Fast forward, the Supreme Court struck down laws trying to ban or censor games, affirming that even violent games are protected speech. The court decided that parents should be in charge of parenting. The First Amendment doesn't evaporate just because it's a kid seeing the content, and studies later showed that the scare was overblown. Video games didn't create a generation of psychos. Before that, go back to the 1950s. Comic books were accused of causing juvenile delinquency. The 1980s, heavy metal music and Dungeons and Dragons were supposedly leading kids to Satanism or suicide. There were even Ozzy Osbourne lawsuits based on his song Suicide Solution. Remember? There was this weird craze going on at the time about secret subliminal messages in hard rock. And free speech won out each time. Every new media seems to get blamed for society's ills until we gain perspective. It's a cycle. New technology freaks out the old guard. Television, rock and roll, rap lyrics, Harry Potter, you name it. All were the TikTok of their day in terms of public outrage. A lot of scholars call it the techno-panic cycle. And we often collectively do stupid things in the midst of an outrage to make ourselves calm down and feel better. But that momentary feel-good, knee-jerk reaction usually carries long-term problems. Now, are smartphones and social media totally benign? Of course not. There's real concerns here. Teen depression and anxiety have risen alongside social media use, though it's a chicken and egg question. TikTok can bombard young users with unrealistic body images, dangerous challenges, or just rob them of sleep and focus. As for me, I stay away from TikTok because every minute I spend on short form, dopamine engineered, ADHD sensitive content makes me feel my IQs melting away like an ice cube in the Sahara. These are issues we absolutely need to address. But the big question is how? Do we want the government stepping in as the national parent, suing and regulating every platform for the children? Or do we handle it at home and in the community through parenting, education, and maybe some smart limits that don't treat adults like toddlers? Personally, I lean toward freedom and personal responsibility. I get the appeal of letting a judge or senator play tech nanny, ban this, force that, protect my kid from me. But what do we lose in the bargain? Possibly our First Amendment values for one. Probably our individual moral agency for another. That North Carolina judge scoffed at TikTok invoking free speech. He said the First Amendment does not bless manipulating kids. I see his point. Designing software to be addictive isn't exactly the kind of speech Jefferson had in mind. It's more like conduct, maybe even a product defect. But if we start calling algorithms unethical for maximizing engagement, where do we draw the line? Netflix autoplay, YouTube recommendations, video game reward loops, all are designed to keep us hooked. Are they all immoral, deceptive practices or just good business? How far do we extend this reasoning and related legal hooks? It's complicated, folks. There's a danger that in our rush to save kids, we empower governments to police content and design in ways that could chill innovation and expression. Remember, a broad coalition of state attorney generals is now suing TikTok, and some are eyeing Instagram, YouTube, and others next. We're essentially saying, we think your app is too fun and popular, so you owe us damages. If that sounds unprecedented, it is. Even the lawsuits against video games in the past mostly failed because courts were wary of punishing media for being engaging, interesting, or just neat. So how do we protect kids and ourselves from real harms without sliding into full-blown tech panic? First, a little humility goes a long way. We should admit we don't fully understand how TikTok or AI are reshaping brains. The science is mixed and complicated. Knee-jerk comparisons to digital heroin or cancer for the mind might grab headlines, but they often crumble under scrutiny. Panicking can lead to overreach, like censoring valuable content or turning social apps into 18 years old plus forbidden fruit, which, let's be real, might only make teens want them more. Instead, we should demand transparency and truth from tech companies. If TikTok really did hide internal research on mental health effects while marketing itself as safe, that's a problem. Shine a light on it. Encourage tech to build better parental controls and actually use them. Educate kids and parents on healthy tech habits, just like we do about junk food or stranger danger. And sure, enforce existing laws against fraud or child exploitation. No one disputes that. But we must be careful about using lawsuits or legislation to solve what are largely social and parenting challenges. There's no substitute for an engaged parent or mentor teaching a kid how to navigate the online world. No app store, rule, or AI filter can do that job as well as a conversation at the dinner table. Freedom means responsibility, both for individuals and for parents raising the next generation of responsible individuals. In the end, free speech and liberty are messy. They allow a chatbot to say something shocking and a teenager to hear it. They allow a platform like TikTok to exist and thrive, and yes, to be misused or overused. Living in a free society means we'll always wrestle with new dangers. But banning, censoring, or suing them out of existence is rarely the best answer. We have tools of our own, the power to speak back, to unplug, to set rules in our homes and communities. So before we call on the lawyers or politicians to save us from TikTok and talking robots, let's take a breath. These technologies are new, and a little fear is natural. But we've stared down dangerous new media before and lived to tell the tale, usually realizing later that the demon wasn't nearly as fearsome as he was made out to be. With a dose of common sense skepticism of easy fixes and a firm grip on our values of speech and personal freedom, we can confront these challenges without losing our minds or our rights. New tech will keep coming, and with it will come anxiety. Let's meet it with open eyes, open debate, and confidence that our principles can handle the future. Liberty has a habit of outlasting every panic, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Bottom line, don't panic, stay informed, defend your freedom, and teach your kids well. The rest will fall into place. And guess what? No lawyers, no lawsuits required. I'm Benjamin Barr, and I'm glad that you joined us today. My job as a constitutional litigator is to give you the tools necessary to unwrap and solve today's constitutional controversies. Please be sure to like and subscribe, as it really helps my educational project. And join us next week as we examine yet another constitutional controversy.